Today morning I was having a discussion with one of my student since he is from Taiwan. We are discussing about the COMPUTEX event, and sometime I said down the lane I may visit Taiwan and I may visit his place, and he was wondering why not I come during this event. So down the lane we are discussing about upcoming technologies and technologies which are going to be a big boom in the real near time future, and so things like that. So eventually a couple of things have popped up, and he mentioned about there is lot of IoT being showcased, products in and around with respect to IoT being showcased in a COMPUTEX event. He said sometime he may wish to attend the same. So we are in that sort of discussion and debate, and eventually the thing came into the picture, like what could be the next big boom in the industry. So this is where often many people will be confused, because they as a beginner in that technology in IT field, as well as in case if you are studying in college, you may be wondering and you may be reading or knowing about several things, and you will be kind of confused. So here is where I can give an entire different dimension of the same. So when it comes to as Steve Jobs mentioned in his opening note of iPad product. See, iPad is a device where it allows you to consume the data. So there are devices like that. Say even your mobile phone, it is a great source of consumption of the data, because you don't effectively sit there and then do a lot of productive work in the same. So you may watch videos, and of course you may shoot videos and you may upload it back to the Facebook and things like that, or YouTube and things like that. But on the other hand, overall a mobile phone is a data consumption device, just like Steve Jobs mentioned. So this is what IoT devices is going to play a role. It is going to be a platform where data is generated, unlike data is consumed. So in the user end, so it can be your fitness bands, smartwatches, and it can be any sort of temperature monitor, or any smart grid, power monitoring, meters and stuff like that. So all these cases, what happens is, even it can be a smart refrigerator and washing machine and stuff like that. So all these cases, the data is generated, so the data points are captured, and then it has to be put forward in a cloud. So what happens is, in this side, it is going to be hot. So there are few factors limiting to get that proper explosion, because one of the things is also lack of V6 addressing versus IPv4 addressing. Because of that, these devices are not going to get the global visibility. You can't just ping directly some kind of sensor attached to Raspberry Pi device with some public IP. So you need to do a lot of workaround. You need to put VPNs in place, and these are all the factors which is going to limit in that domain, whereas IoT is considered. So this is going to be always a challenge unless until V6 is widely adopted and we get V6 based networks available. So this is one thing around. The other side is as this data is captured and as it moved to the cloud, and this is where the real revolution should still happen. We have a lot of things happening with respect to the way data is managed in data centers. You have the data center consolidation, server consolidation and stuff like that. So eventually we had single unit servers to blade servers, and then followed by which again we are going back towards a single huge servers with multi-core platforms, wherein which you can dump many VMs on the same, and you can have you can leverage the multi-core and multi-threading architecture of the hardware with respect to the software, whatever you install on top of that. With multiple VMs, you can have complete dedicated systems, virtual systems on top of the same. So this way you can make various software cluster, storage clusters, as well as, I'm sorry, not software cluster, I mean to say storage clusters deployed on these virtual device platform, as well as you have this upcoming software defined networking. It is also kind of the industry speaks a lot about it, but it is not something the specs are not just like that available for any common person to understand and go through. So it is still in that sort of big budget companies are coming up with few products here and there, but it is not something so much privileged. So this is where it is heading when it comes to data collection points, because this is where the data is kept. So if you see what could be the future upcoming technologies, it is going to be of course IoT, and it is going to be of course on the other hand the data center technologies like SDN and storage space like SDS, and in the case of SDS you can consider like ZFS and clustering file system, and in the case of SDN you have various array of technologies, whereas in the case of VMs of course it is going to also dominate more in the future. So it is going to be again VMware and other platforms like that. So one of the most leading technologies in virtualization is of course VMware have contributed a lot. Of course the only downside, it is a lot more, it is a proprietary platform and it is not something like commonly available as open source sort of a platform, although you have other alternatives like VirtualBox with some limited features, or you have this native kernel KVM virtualization and stuff like that. So this is what it is going to evolve in the future. So everywhere you can see if it is something about virtualization, it is not something it is fully, it is just like exploded. You have to stick with some of these industry proprietary based platforms. It is not something you can readily take something like a Linux system and just put on a big VM platform. The only downside is, for example, even my system, I have taken a video recently about my home lab entirely put in a VirtualBox VM. So to pick such technologies, what is the limiting factor is stability, and it has to work 24/7. It has to be a lot more stable. It has to give that smooth performance curve. In the case of VirtualBox, it is not going to happen because it is going to have this entire software virtualization, and it will have this system overheads and stuff like that. So if you do a large file transfer, so here and there in your virtual network of your VirtualBox, it is going to flip-flop between multiple stages. Suddenly it will transfer at high speed, and then suddenly the performance will drop down, and this is where it is going to be a sort of a bottleneck. So these things are going to evolve. So that's what I mean to so eventually down the line these things are going to much more going to evolve, and now that AMD is in the pitch, right pitch with their Ryzen, and then the upcoming platforms, and as well as this Threadripper, and so Intel have also started suddenly ramping up their processor lineup, which is not happening for many years. Intel is just year on year, it's just very their release model have become sluggish, and they are just focusing on Xeon based platforms, not much on desktop based platform. And even though they release each year some couple of new models, you can't expect a huge performance boost or any increase in the CPU cores as well. So this is the sort of thing it is happening. So to cope up with all these things, it is also going to be better hardware we can able to see, so that it supports this sort of platform in the future. So one side you have this desktop market, it also needs some multiple many cores to support any sort of virtualization. You can even have any gaming environment within a specific VM, and another VM you can have a different environment. We never know what could be the use cases. It's just not about the industry is not always tuned with respect to applications like banking and stuff like that. Sometimes it also depends on how the consumer market is going to drive the market. So if you see the data center market, it is also driven by consumer market. It is not just critical business application is going to run there. End of the day, it is also the user data is going to exist and going to get processed or get stored over there. So that's where it is going to evolve. So it is going to be an overall shift from more from hardware towards the software layers because of the much computational power it is going to offer in terms of better and better CPUs and hardware resources. So I feel this is where it is going to evolve, and whatever I talked about, it is already evolved, but it is not that it is not that something we can see has been complete. What I see is a complete explosion that you get IoT almost everywhere, literally just everywhere, and also it should make sense. Currently we have some maybe some hoverboards which may report some status. You may have some fitness bands or smartwatches, it may report some health monitoring status. Sometimes these things are like even or you can consider this VR platforms. So we never know which is going to sustain in the market, which is going to get obsolete. So this is the question. So which is going to finally evolve into a kind of mandatory device which is going to be present at every home, versus some of these technologies which may get eventually down the lane may lose its charm. So this is what it is. So this is where it is going to head in the future. So one side is IoT, one side is mobile computing platform, of course, where the data is consumed. IoT is where data is produced and then pushed to the cloud, and to manage the data you need all these cloud-based technologies, and otherwise other than that you need the basic network infrastructure, the basic system infrastructure, the basic data center platform evolution. So thank you guys for watching this video. In case if you have any questions, discuss in YouTube comments or discuss in the discussion forum. So thank you very much for watching this video again. Have a nice day. Bye bye.